Hi, I'm Lewis from TC Combat.
I'm Dave.
I'm Scott.
We're going to be chatting a bit about the drop fleet rules in Battle for Earth.
Yep.
Dave, there's a lot of rules.
There are a lot of rules. Yeah, so Battle for Earth functions as the first expansion for Drop Fleet. So it's not new. It's not a new rule set. It's an expansion from the core Drop Fleet book, which you still need to play Drop Fleet.
Yeah.
It obviously has some new core mechanics in there and a whole new faction, the Resistance,
yes.
which is probably the first thing to talk about.
Yeah, we should probably start there, shouldn't we? There's one very particular rule. No, we should talk about that.
So
the elephant in the room, isn't it?
I'm going to get fluffy on this straight away.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I have been recorded previously saying there will not be a Resistance fleet, and voila, here is a Resistance fleet.
Yeah.
So I changed my mind on this several times in the past, but now I've kind of worked these in narratively in a way that they make sense.
I think the big thing is that this Resistance fleet isn't what you thought a Resistance fleet was
Yes,
going to be back when you said that.
This is the key thing. So before it was a question of do the ground Resistance have a fleet, and the answer is absolutely not. They do not
at all. They can barely get planes.
They can just about maybe have a few VTOL fighters, and that's it for them. Any ships that have been in Scourge occupied territory have been destroyed hundreds of years ago. There's no way you can hide in space for that length of time around Scourge planets.
Yeah.
But so the Resistance in space is very much a different thing. There's all kinds. So there's various little roaming groups that basically ran away during the Scourge invasion. But when the colonies formed, they turned all their nodes off, which meant you couldn't directly FTL to them accurately. So they had no choice but to just jump into the middle of nowhere and just hope and pray, pretty much. First ship to go drops a node, and then all the others can follow. So you can have groups of ships together, travelling around like that. So you've got a few groups like that. That can be your fleet if you want it to be. They've been in space for 200 years, and now that the Battle for Earth is happening, they've sent scouts back, they've seen the amount of activity, and they've gone, right, guys, it's now or never. And in they go. So that's one group. Those are independents.
Speaking of turning fold space nodes off, I think it's the next one. Isn't it?
So the next one is Callium, which is a major. It's a sub-faction, really. It's a major new factor in this book that we teased briefly once, but people have not really seen it coming, and it's a new creation. Callium are a rogue colony, so when the UCM formed, Callium decided it didn't want centralised government from Aurum, the capital, and turned all its nodes off. It's like, right, we're going to do this by ourselves. What that means is that Callium has had to exist on its own for 200 years as a pretty productive planet, but it hasn't been able to advance technologically, so it's been building the same tech for 200 years, but it's instead focused on hardcore military training and volume. So Callium has conscription. It's basically a kind of dark mirror of the UCM in a way. It's like the UCM taken to its extremes.
I think there's a bit in there that talks about how Callium's come back, and the UCM sort of like populace are like, oh, that's a bit weird, and then look at it closer and go, or is it? Is it a bit weird? Like, that's sort of similar to what we've got, but it's a bit different,
more extreme. And UCM are obviously quite uncomfortable about Callium because there's an independent colony, and they're a federation of colonies, and to see another colony work on its own is a bit nerve-wracking.
And do quite well,
as well. Do quite well, which is quite nerve-wracking.
They're not feeding off scraps. They're quite the powerhouse.
Yeah, exactly. So Callium are a factor, without too many spoilers there, but. Callium, the big difference with all the other Resistance and Callium is that their ships are lovely and shiny and new. They're not necessarily new, but they haven't really seen combat, so they're all clean, shiny. If you want to do a very uniform fleet with a very clean aesthetic, then Callium is what you play. So that's one major Resistance sub-faction, and the third is the Vega Scrap Fleet. Which has been in the background.
Boys.
The Vega Scrap Fleet has been in the background since the very, very beginning, since the first core book.
Since the Battle of Vega, really.
Yes, exactly. So pre-Scourge invasion, before the PHR even existed, the White Sphere comes down to Earth and warns mankind to leave Earth and all its major colonies because this doom is coming. So there's a kind of the end is nigh thing. And a whole load of humanity decides to run away and follow the sphere.
Your boys.
So they form up over Vega 4, where the sphere tells them to form up. Basically, come here and I'll tell you where to go next. And then the rest of mankind tries to stop them from fleeing, because if there is going to be this big invasion, they need every ship they can get. Then what becomes the PHR chooses to fire on the fleet sent to stop them. You have a big fleet battle, lots and lots of destruction, the biggest fleet battle up until that point. Then they manage to escape, and the ones that escape become the PHR, effectively. the ones that are left are either the ships that are able to fold space back to Earth or the colonies. They fold space back to Earth and immediately get their asses kicked by the Scourge. Literally like 2 days later.
Yeah, so there's quite a lot of people left over.
Yeah, and all the people left over, those are ones with their drives destroyed, the ship is too damaged to make jumps, etc. They're stuck there and they're told to expect rescue. And guess what? They don't get rescue because they're all too busy running away from the Scourge.
And then, of course, every other fold space in those goes dark.
Yes, so they're stuck.
Communication is gone.
But there is a lot of wreckage.
Yeah.
So they've spent 200 years existing there, managing to repair their ships. So the Vega Scrap Fleet is literally the scrappiest looking of the Resistance sub-factions.
Yeah. It's a bunch of ships bolted together.
Yeah, they're the ones on the front cover of the starter set.
Yes.
So you can see them all different colours, different hodgepodges of different things.
And it's not like they were particularly uniform when they first got into the battle.
Exactly. Yeah. So, much like the Resistance in Zone, Fleet Resistance gives you the most scope for doing things with your models, with your paint schemes.
Yeah.
You can really go to town and be creative. The rules are the same for all of them, which actually brings me on to rules quite neatly.
Yeah. Well done.
Yeah. So the Resistance, they have several key things. So overall, in general,
that's the big main thing, wasn't there, that we started when we started designing them, which was they have to be able to take whatever they want on whatever ship they want. A completely modular design.
Yeah, very modular design, especially for the frigates and the cruisers, which are in plastic.
Yeah.
So the cruiser sprue is one of the things I'm most proud of that I've done in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
It's one sprue, and there's how many combinations?
If you have enough spare pieces, there's over 10 billion different combinations of crews that you can build.
Yeah, which is nuts.
Yeah, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, all the different parts are interchangeable. Yeah. They'll probably be doing a different video in the future about building these things. Yeah. But, a lot of that is aesthetic, but some of it is rules. Yeah. And that's reflected in the rules, and that there's a builder for cruisers and frigates, unlike all the other factions that choose, like Madrid class, Berlin class. Yeah. They can go, right, I want 2 missile broadsides, I want 2 gun turrets, and I want extra armour. And then you choose light, medium, heavy, and then that gives you a number of hard points to build off.
That's the distinction of it, isn't it? It's 3 different classes of ship, and there's a few different variants in their stat lines, but other than that, the main thing is how many sort of hard point upgrades they take. Yeah. And you're not really limited very much. You can only take 1 lot of extra armor, 1 lot of extra engines, like the drive. But other than that, and 2 of each broadside, because that's all the space you've got on one ship for broadside.
In general,
there's a lot of freedom.
There's a lot of freedom, but it's not anywhere near as intimidating as it might sound.
No,
it's
not.
Very simple. There's just a list of things you can take and 3 basic hulls, and then that's more or less it. As far as the miniatures go, they've been designed so it's very much what you see is what you get.
I think that's one of the things we started off with, wasn't it? That it's going to have such modularity. You can't say, oh, this is a Seattle, or you can't just say that's what it is, and people know. You go, well, this one's got this upgrade, this upgrade, this upgrade, and that gets a bit tiresome.
It does, but when you look at the models, the extra armor is basically great big plates that go on them. It's very, very obvious that it's got extra armor. The guns are all a little bit bigger than the other factions'
they're a little bit oversized, and I think Scott, you said quite a lot of them. We sort of came back and said the 2 of these guns are very similar sort of silhouettes.
Yes.
So you see some of them are doubled up, and some of them, like the artillery cannons, have got the 3 barrels on there. So as a glance from across the table, you can be able to see.
You can see what that ship has. Pretty much.
I think Finn, our painter, did a really good job on distinguishing the different weapons. Like all the vent cannons on the official sort of the studio job, they're all very bright green.
Yeah,
the missiles are all picked out in red. So and like we encourage players to sort of do that sort of same thing to make sure that throughout their fleet, every upgrade is sort of follows a very similar visual style. Yeah, even with conversions, and there's definitely a lot to convert on there.
So you got those. You do have some fixed classes as well that are the kind of ex-military ships that did have defined classes. We
talked about earlier that there's a lot of ships that you wouldn't really get battle cruisers that could be all sorts of different vessels. The battle cruisers are very sort of set design.
And they were fairly limited in numbers before the rules. So you've got battle cruisers which are more like other factions' battleships in size, weight, power level. A little bit cheaper.
And they are beautiful, those models.
Really
if you like the Centurion.
If you like, it's the Centurion on steroids.
The
Resistance battle cruiser is a nice big piece. And you've got a few of those. You've got Grand Cruisers, which is actually a resculpt of the Centurion as a base, which is a brand new model.
Yeah, we didn't want people that bought the Centurion to feel like they it was a one-off sort of show thing. It's always, and it was a bit of a sneak with us. So we put that in, and we're like, we've already started working on the rest of it. We know what's coming.
It's still a Centurion Grand Cruiser, so obviously you can use your Centurions as Centurions. It's just built on a different planet, basically.
Different style.
And there's also the Gladiator now as well, which is an all-vent cannon ship, which is quite powerful but also quite risky. So you've got those two, and you have grand battleships, and grand battleships are basically like big. Well, they're between a battleship.
I'd say
and a
they're mini dreadnoughts.
They're closer to being a mini dreadnought than they are to being a big battleship. They're over twice the weight in resin of miniature.
Interesting enough, they've kind of got another modular design to them as well, don't they?
They do, yeah. That one was one of the most challenging things to work out, because it's a resin kit and you can't frankly do as many components in resin.
It's not sprue, it's got the individual pieces.
So what you've basically got is you've got a hull and you've got a prow and engines, and the kit gives you 2 prows and 2 engines, and either will go on either end of the ship. So you
very front heavy or very
it can either be very pointy or it can be very front heavy. And the turrets go either way round, and the broadsides go on either way round, and you've got different bridges that can go.
You've got 3 different bridges, haven't you?
Two bridges and 1 keel, and they can go in any of 4 mount points either way round. So you've got a lot of flexibility. So even your battleship resin blister, you can build quite a bit of variation.
It's not quite 10 billion, but it's still quite a lot.
It's 2 fixed classes in the book, so it's very simple as far as gameplay goes. It's just, is it one of these? Is it one of those? And that's it. Lastly, you've got a Corvette, which is more or less the same as other factions' Corvettes in what it does. It kills strike carriers and other Corvettes in atmosphere, and that's about it.
Lovely little model though.
I had fun with that one. It looks like an old kind of World War II bomber almost. In places near the front, they've got a kind of slightly vintage aesthetic, like the Resistance on the ground do. There's a bit of play off there.
I really like the Resistance fleet, and that they're sort of very 80s sci-fi looking.
Not
quite as much as the Pungari Thresher. that is like Red Dwarf's kind of style shit.
That was real. It's meant to look as crude as possible. But no, the Resistance, they're also the granddaddies of the UCM and the PHR. So if you play them, they've got broadsides and turrets.
They've got visual style from sort of both of them. We saw it in the Centurion last year.
It's basically the Centurion was an essay for the style, and then we just expanded into that. So you've got all kinds of things going on there.
I mean, I love my scrap fleet, I've got to say. I put on the community page last week, Scott and Matt and I did put some together, and I think we're sending you home some with them.
I'm going to actually build some miniatures, which I did get a bit of time in between writing the background to build my dreadnoughts over Christmas, which was cool.
Oh, that's good.
So they're all on my desk, but I'm probably never going to get time to paint them. But I want to build some of these plastics. Mine are going to probably be very consistent and spiky, I think. Very back heavy. That's how I'm going to build them, and they'll be Callium.
You've got quite military ones, haven't you, Scott?
Yeah. Mine went for slightly more similar style to yours. Very back heavy, very pointy.
Mine are not.
No.
Well, maybe if you're going to do that, I might go front heavy, because I was going to go one or the other and stay consistent through my fleet. So if you're doing that, I'll do.
Yeah, you've got sort of the big chin sort of prows.
I'm going to go big chin front heavy then, which is cool. Either way works.
Mine look like I poured some glue on the table and turned down a box.
They are genuinely all over the place, but that's of course, if you've got multiple sprues, you can be even cleverer and you can do all kinds of weird.
I've used some of the spares cruiser bits on my frigates and some of the spare frigate bits on my cruisers.
And you're obviously going to get a ton of spares anyway, because there's a lot of bits on the sprue that you don't necessarily need every single time, so you will not be short for spare parts.
The only real limitation on that kit is the broadsides have to go on broadsides.
That's
basically it.
But then all the rail mounts don't have to go. They can go on broadsides as well.
Stuff can go sideways.
I've got one which has got 3 artillery cannons on the front. Just like, hey, you like guns? Here are your guns.
It's a nice amount of flexibility. You've got, with those artillery cannons, you've got some new rules. I'm not going to get into detail here, but you've got new weapon types like vent cannons that are powerful if you go on weapons free, but they can hurt your own ship.
Yeah, you're basically venting the reactor straight
directly from the core. It's a very dangerous gun that the UCM banned. Callium doesn't care.
And Resistance, blow half the ship off, we'll just get another half a ship.
They have to do what they have to do. You've got artillery cannons that are actually old school, chemically fired, traditional cannon, that you can fire on more or less any order, which is really cool. They're not that powerful. Really, they're generally lock 5, but they are super flexible. So it's nice to have some of those thrown in there. You've got close action.
If you always want to throw a bunch of dice at someone, then
you've got close action broadsides for the first time. Arc limited.
Those missile broadsides look really nice.
They're really nice, big banks of missiles, which is cool to have. Helps because in general the Resistance have very poor point defense. So you've got an interesting playoff there. poor point defense, poor speed. But they
big
do
armor for the start of the game.
Big armor.
Yeah.
Their armor degrades as the ship gets crippled.
Yeah.
But they also have really excellent crew. So the big one is that all resistance ships can lose a major spike on standard orders, which is huge.
Yeah.
Actually, that's one of the big advantages you get.
Things. Yeah, they draw extra command cards as well, don't they?
They do. Yeah.
So whenever you draw command cards, you sort of take your Rebel value level, draw an extra one, and discard one down.
Yes.
So they've always got a bit of choice over what they do.
Yeah, which is useful, and it reflects the quality of the crew. You know, the ships aren't amazing quality-wise, but the crew are excellent. So overall, you can
spend your entire life in space.
Exactly. You know, the UCM are still noobs relatively. They've only really had 3 years of conflict, whereas they've had a tough life. Yeah. It shows.
Yeah.
So
that's not all in there. We should probably talk about the rest of
it. We probably should.
We're big on resistance fleet.
Yeah. So that's we've gone. Yeah, we've probably gone on a bit there, but it's fine. We've also got all the ships we've produced since the original rulebook are all in here in print with obviously colour photography background. So that's your dreadnoughts and your destroyers.
Yeah, which is good because a lot of people have been sort of holding off on what exactly they can do because of experimental rules.
Yeah, and these have obviously been, after feedback, whatever, these have been polished, and we're very happy with how they are now in terms of where they fit in the game, and they're all in here in the most latest changes.
I love that half the dreadnoughts only shoot to the right.
Oh, there's the one, it's a left-right battery, it's very easy to miss.
There's got to be a Tracker James in there somewhere.
Nothing that bad this time round, no, it's a big book. So you've got those, and you have the new monitors.
Yes. Yeah, there's something we're keen to put in there, because people have been after monitors for a long time.
Yeah.
They're slow. And they're basically a chassis for the purpose of having a gun on there, aren't they?
More or less, yeah. So they work like monitors historically. So they're slow, heavily armoured, good weaponry. They can't, in monitors were generally coastal vessels. Like these don't have FTL drives. They need to be tugged in, off battlefield. It doesn't matter in gameplay. Yeah. But they need to be brought in. And that justifies their very high power level and high armour. For their small, they're only frigate-sized things. There's 2 per faction. Some of them actually aren't monitors.
Yeah, actually, there's quite a lot of variance in there. It was quite an interesting sort of process, isn't it? Because we knew they were going to be monitor size, we knew they were going to be monitor class, and the sort of builds that we had for them. But then it was very much like, well, what does each faction need? Yeah. And what fits each faction? Yeah. So there's very unique things. Like the Sheltari have the heavy void gate, which is on the Sheltari players. Yeah. I mean, Sheltari players, but they've been after for a long time is a void gate that doesn't just pop.
Yeah, it's a void gate with guns. Yeah. The Scourge have the Lamassu, which is a barge.
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, so that's...
It's very interesting for Scourge as well, something that's very slow. But it's always going to be getting up the table. Okay, I can leave it for a turn, I can leave it... Oh no, it's here and it's got massive launch.
It's slow, and it has bulklanders, which is the smallest ship in the game to be able to launch bulklanders. And it can do bombardment. Yeah. So it's like a reverse defense ship. It's basically an orbital barracks, more or less, that's been floating around Earth or the Cradle Worlds, and then the invaders are down there, and it strikes back from above, which is the kind of reverse way of reverse defense, defense in depth kind of thing. Yeah.
So, I think we've done some really interesting things with the ships, like the PHR monitors as well, the Castor and the Pollux. Yeah. Really interesting because one of them is very tall but very short, like stubby, with the sort of twin guns on the front.
Yeah, and which are on rotating mounts.
On rotating mounts. And then you pulled those off and replaced it with one long fin, so it sort of turns the ship into a complete different shape. Yeah. That one's barely got any weapons at all. So
no,
just
it's
action,
Aegis. Yeah, the big one is it gives point defense to friendly ships, like the Jakarta does for the UCM, but even more so because it's more expensive and more powerful. Yeah. But it's very good for battleships in particular to keep your battleships alive against close action bombers, that kind of thing, which is cool.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so that's there's a tree campaign in here as well that links fleet and zone. That's very prescribed. Like it's a pre-done tree campaign. You don't need to think, just play that. Yeah. There's some new mechanics for the game. Not too many. It's not a massive load of new rules, but there are a few that are in there, and some new scenarios too that have been heavily played in tournaments all over the place. And we did a little bit more polish on them, but they're all in here. So there's plenty for fleet players to get excited about in the book.
Yeah, I think we can carry on talking about this for ages, so we should probably log on for that.
I think it's a logical stopping point there.
We've got more videos coming, so check back on TT Community soon.